Benin City, a quiet morning. But inside, Asiasa Obaseki, the storm still brewed. She hadn't wept at her father's funeral, not because she didn't feel anything, but because she felt everything. Grief, anger, betrayal. A message buzzed on her phone, cold and direct. Reading of your father's will. Today, 2 p.m. Hiromi. She stared at the old black and white photo of a man who had shaped her life. From the shadows, and for the first time in years, she whispered back to it. Quietly, you left more than secrets behind, and I'm going to find them. The red earth of Hiromi felt like memory beneath her feet, familiar, but not quite home. Inside the Obaseki compound, tension had already taken a seat. Barrister Kola welcomed her, but eyes followed her like whispers. Then, the bombshell. Barrister Kola reading, to my daughters, Asiosa and Ivy Obaseki. Asiasa froze. Her what? Her confusion was a scream dressed as a question. Asiosa shocked. Excuse me, what did you just say? She turned to the quiet woman in a wrapper seated in the shadows, and the young girl beside her. Asiosa, who are you? Mama rose calmly. The woman your father didn't have the courage to tell you about. Tension filled the room. There it was. Her father's other life, spoken into existence. And with Itine, another daughter, another heir, another world. The will had been read, but the story had just begun. Asiosa stormed into the courtyard, heart pounding. Her mother, Mama Abigail, had just arrived. Mama Abigail, what's going on? Why are people whispering, voice shaking? He left land in my name, and in hers. Mama, she's his other wife. That girl, her daughter. Silence stretched like a blade. Mama Abigail bitterly. So this is what we've become. Sisters, in secret. 10 years earlier, in the flicker of lantern light, Chief Imade Obaseki wrote in a journal, his back to the woman who waited patiently. Chief Obaseki, they must never know. Rose, not yet. Asiasa is not ready. Mama Rose, and when will she be? When I'm buried beside you, and they all curse me. Chief Obaseki, let me protect them, even if I cannot be forgiven. Back in the guest room, Asiosa sat with the photo pressed to her chest. The phone buzzed again, this time from an unknown number. Text message. There are more things your father never told you. Come to the back hut. Tomorrow. Come alone. Isusa murmuring. What else did you bury, Daddy? Dawn in Hiromi. Asiasa walked across the misty compound toward the old hut. Inside, dust, silence, and the truth. A photo, a land deed, a journal addressed to both daughters, and then, a quiet presence in the doorway. Ivy softly. I knew you'd come, Asiasa. You knew. He left one for me too. 2 journals, 1 legacy, 2 daughters, 1 truth, and in the silence that followed, something like sisterhood was born. Later that morning, under the veranda's shade, Mama Rose sat quietly, shelling a goosey. Asiosa and Ivy approached, journals in hand. You knew, and said nothing. Mama Rose. Because it wasn't mine to tell, it was his, Ivy. But we had a right to know. Mama Rose softly. He feared hurting you more than he feared dying, and in the end, he did both. Mama Abigail arrived. The air thickened, but this time, Asiasa didn't walk away. Asiasa, I don't want war. I want peace. For me, for Ivy, for him. That night, under lantern light, Asiasa opened the final envelope. It read, Chief Obaseki voiceover. My dearest Asiasa, I was never brave enough to be the father you needed. Forgive me, not because I deserve it, but because you do. She wiped a tear as moonlight touched her face. The ache remained, but it had a name now, and a voice. She whispers, I see you now, Papa. I see all of you. The next morning, the Obaseki compound was still, but not broken. Asiasa stood beneath the mango tree, a new calm in her eyes. Mama Abigail and Mama Rose sat side by side, not speaking, not fighting either. And then, Ivy approached with 2 cups of Zobo. Ivy smiling. You didn't run away this time, Aciesa. I guess I finally arrived. For the first time, they stood not as rivals, but as something deeper. Sisters by blood, sisters by choice. For those we loved, for those we lost, and for those we're still learning to forgive.